Our next speaker, oh man, we're so lucky to have Don. He's a busy guy around the state of Indiana and other places. Don is the founder and CEO of the Started Up Foundation, which hosts Innovate Within, get it, Indiana, Indiana's innovation and entrepreneurship programming and competition. He is also the author of Pure Genius, Building a Culture of Innovation, which aims to create innovation mindsets in our schools. Don is known for his award-winning work as a teacher, educational, and innovation consultant, and educational speaker. He is also a TEDx alumni and has been a podcast host for over 6 years. So we're really fortunate to have Don Wettrick with us. Put your hands together and give him a nice welcome.
All right, before I begin, this is going to be really hard for me to stay in one place. I'm a pacer. Like I said before, my name is Don Wettrick. I'm the founder and CEO of Started Up Foundation. I'm going to talk to you today about 4 main concepts I want you to take away, especially if you are a teacher or a student. Number 1, what is the purpose of this building? And ironically enough, these next 2 photos are all generated by AI. And I asked then, what is the purpose of this room? Both those photos are literally generated by AI, and what AI thinks school is something that's steeped in tradition, no problem. It kind of had an older look to it, if you want to take a look at that again. And there's classroom, it's still rows and desks. What I'm going to challenge you today is what I think about education, what it could be. So I'm going to start off with a story. A couple years ago, actually a year and a half ago, Assistant Secretary of Commerce Alejandra Castillo was in town, and they were doing a roundtable. Actually, it's not a roundtable. I guess we're in a square. That's me over there. And they had this roundtable. They were talking about this Tech Hubs Act, and a lot of it was going to how we were going to spend the money, right? And we were like, what are we going to do? How are we going to have more collaborative spaces? And they were talking about, we need to build this innovation center. We need to build this hub, and we need to have this tech center and co-working spaces. And so it finally got around to me, and I said, I would just like to remind everybody here that there is an innovation center in every single town in America. The bricks have already been laid, the heat has been paid for. It's called your local school, if you want it to be that way. And by the way, Ms. Castilla said that she has my endorsement. When she said this, she looked over to the side, and she was that. I want more people to know that. As we start building out what does innovation mean and could it mean, our elementaries, middle schools, and high schools have to be the ones that are leading that charge and figuring it out what it is, and a safe place for them to try things and fail. So today, at the time, like I told her this, and she thought that was a novel idea, and I have to give credit where credit's due. About 13 years ago, ironically enough, I watched a TED Talk by Daniel Pink. Homework if you want to do it after this session's over. But he started talking about what motivates people, and it was mastery, autonomy, and purpose. And I just remember after I watched that TED Talk, I took action. I literally watched it during my lunch period when I was a classroom teacher, and I started something which we're going to get into on what is 20% time. But I just remember, and still now do, entrepreneurs take action. They don't wait around, they try, they fail, they recover, they make changes. Which ironically enough, as I was saying, after I watched that, I took action. At first it was a class, and then we decided to form our own classroom, and we called it Innovation and Open Source Learning. And what that meant was this was a class where you got to do the things that you wanted to do. But you told me how and what you want to accomplish, how to set goals, how to backward design. The problem was, a lot of times our students wanted to work on things that I was not an expert in. And that was when we called it open source learning. So some of our students wanted to learn how to code a basic game and put it on the iTunes store. Or they wanted to, we had one student that wanted to learn how to patch quilt before her grandmother passed away and learn how to patch quilt her grandma. And at first people were like, why are you doing that in school? And then when I said it, it's a place where students can go to learn the things that they want to learn, not necessarily the things that they have to learn, just a small part of your school day. And so that was kind of the launching of this class, and honestly why I'm here today. So today's main points I'm going to go over is these 4 main things. Number 1, make the decision that your school is an innovation hub at any grade level. 2, students get to see problems as opportunities, and opportunities worth solving. build a network now, and leadership to transform it from idea to reality. So let's get into that. Number one, your school should be an innovation hub. Just as I was talking to Assistant Secretary Castillo, that idea of, oh yeah, why aren't we doing that? What if there was a hub? What if there was at first one teacher that said, I want to do more project-based, community-based activities? What if that teacher would call their local mayor and say, we've got some things. I've got a bunch of students that want to take on problems. We say again and again when we're out talking to students, seeing a problem as an opportunity is absolutely huge. But the first thing is you have to make that the destination. Whether you're in elementary, middle, or high school, it takes usually the first teacher to say, we're going to solve problems. Now, I know and I hear it. There's already a lot of problems in the world, but that ability to see problems as opportunities is the first step. And there's some pictures of us. We were talking at first to people on, well, it wasn't Zoom then, it was Skype calls, and we were having the ability to have people, industry experts say, hey, this is coming down the track. This thing is going to be, like, this is the problem we're facing. And my gosh, this was 6-7 years ago. Imagine some of the things that the students now need to untangle with understanding AI tools. Imagine some of the problems that we've been talking about from the stage the students have been bringing up. The world is filled with opportunities to be solved, but there's a ton of them. So then you say, okay, like, what do we want to solve? And by the way, I should also address the other bottom part of slides. Even though we started from the classroom, we started doing community things. We started getting a lot of invitations from local leaders, from business leaders for our students to go there and help them solve problems. So a lot of times when we said, all right, see a problem as an opportunity, I had them break things down in the rule of thirds. And that is, what is a problem worth solving? And this is really, really important, especially if you want to talk to your kids about it. Number one, if you want to work on something, are you already passionate about it? There's problems everywhere, right? My shoestrings are ragged, or I tripped over a mic cord, or whatever. There's tons of problems. If you're passionate about it, you're going to see it through. If you can recruit a team and they want to work on something that means something to them, then they're going to see it through. Number two, what skills are you going to acquire? And by that, I mean, if you just, again, solving a simple problem, that even though you're charged up, you can do it in your sleep, it's really simple. You may want to choose something that makes you a little bit more stretched. And I will also say this, when I'm talking to students, they know this, no one buys a really easy video game. You buy a video game that you're not going to be good at, that it stretches you and it challenges you and you get better. Same thing here. Are you passionate, and do you have the skills, and what skills will you acquire? And lastly, and I think most importantly, who will it benefit other than you? We've had several people wanting to talk about their personal interests and their passions, but what I want my students to see is that you can be a successful person, but I would like it if you would be a successful person helping others. We've had several cases where students start off with a very, very, very focused need that they want, but if they can open it up and realize that they're solving problems for other people, that's where it's at. And by the way, entrepreneurs, that's all they do. They listen to people complain, they see gaps in the market, and then they start something. So I often had my students fill out those rule of thirds. If you have all three checked off, you're good to go. So I'm going to give you some examples. You're like, all right, Don, what does this mean? I'm going to give you some examples from Innovate Within, our state of Indiana's entrepreneurship and innovation competition. Meet Patchables. These students, the first problem they had was their town of Hobart, Indiana, had an animal shelter, was underfunded, and they needed help. And so they decided, all right, we want to do something to get them to be better. So they decided to make a dog toy. And the girl there in the middle, her other problem, though, she thought fast fashion was bad for the environment. A lot of times people, when you buy t-shirts for $5, you may be wearing them for a couple days and you're okay with throwing it away because it's only $5. So they combined their idea that we're going to do go to a farmer's market, set up a table, and ask people to upcycle old jeans and old t-shirts. And what they had done is they were taking the jeans and then cutting a dog bone pattern, taking the t-shirts, shredding them, and stuffing them with the shirts. And so magic happened when they started going through the Innovate Within process. We and then some of their friends at the Small Business Development Center start working with them, and they go, what's your problem? How can you scale up? And they go, we can only make usually like 10 in a week. It takes a while to stuff them and sew them. And the amazing thing is that they didn't know that about 5 miles from their high school is an organization called Tradewinds. And Tradewinds employs special needs adults to do what? Sew and assemble things together. So this team, all of a sudden, by the way, they were freshmen in high school. And they were able to start getting a process of making a lot more. So let's go over this. Are they passionate about it? Yes, on both the dog treat side or dog toy side and on the getting fast fashion out of landfill. What skills did they acquire? At first, just the marketing of getting people to upcycle. They sold, they marketed, then they started learning manufacturing. And then who is it benefiting other than them? Let's see. The environment, dogs and cats, special needs adults who have among the highest unemployment rate. So one project, many, many different solutions. Then I'm also going to introduce Nina and Carrie. They also went through Innovate Within 2 years ago. Fun fact, they were just nominated, or they were just inducted in this year's Forbes 30 Under 30 at age 18. They're from Evansville, Indiana. What their problem is they were lucky enough that they had parents that spent time with them understanding and talking about saving and investing and just some of the basics of financial literacy. And they had seen that a lot of their friends did not. So Carrie had been working on some projects where he was very privy to early AI tools. And so he started making AI tools so he could gamify financial literacy with high school students. So once again, passion about it, check. Skills acquired, oh my gosh, they were early on the AI game. And then who is it helping other than you? That's all they do. So I give you those examples for that reason, that ideas worth solving are stretching you and you're passionate about it and you'll work past that. The other thing I want a good, healthy classroom to have is to rely on building your network. And I really call this the 3 M's. So once you've established the hub, our students are going to solve problems, you make that known, then you start seeing problems as opportunities. Now the most important thing is, and I hate it when people go, well, it's not what you know, it's who you know. Start knowing people. It's just that simple. And people are like, well, where do you start? When I say mayors, I really can mean, if you're in a small town, it could be a city council. But mayors especially do not want to see talent leave. If your students are saying, I want to step up and I want to make a difference, I promise you that local mayor will be all over it. They're incentivized and they want to work with students, especially if they're solving problems. Number 2, media. And I mean that both in traditional media and also social media. If your students are working on something amazing, teachers, call your local media. Slow news days exist. We want to hear good news. That's the reason why you were all here. By the way, thank you for wanting to listen to student voices. So media also holds you accountable. If your students are on LinkedIn saying, hey, we're building this thing, they'll want to make sure that they follow through because they have built an audience. So by able to use media also will help your students. And lastly, the 3rd M is mentors. Reaching out to people and asking for help is the thing. And a lot of those mentors are going to de-risk for the students failure. When you start something, it's going to not work out well. But great mentors, and the teachers as well, are there going to be encouraging the progression of things, not necessarily just celebrating a grade at the end of the semester. And then 4th, there's leadership. I have said this so many times, but one of my favorite, and I'm paraphrasing here, but one of my favorite quotes about education was from an author, Seth Godin. And he said, really and truly, education can be boiled down to 2 things. Solving interesting problems and the leadership to get it done. I'm not sure if you noticed the theme here. But the leadership is where it gets done. And the students you have heard from, that's leadership. Coming up with a great idea means nothing. It's the execution. Now, I know that if you're my age, I am 52, we had this great joke when I was a kid. When I die, I hope that everybody that I did a group project with in high school is there at my funeral. and they bury me so they can let me down one last time. Leadership is you are the one leading it. But leadership is you knowing that team and everybody has a role. Because if you're just doing it for a grade, that's school as we've known it. If you're solving a problem, everybody on that team is empowered to want to chip in. And that's what we're desperately trying to build. So a lot of people say, all right, where can we start? Where, like, my son or daughter is in elementary school or middle school. First of all, again, start with the teacher. If you're watching this here or online, if that's you, plant your flag in the ground. You want to do this. You're the innovation hub of your school. I guarantee you more teachers will want to be a part of this. Number two, especially if you're at the elementary and middle school levels, start a Genius Hour, start a 20% time, start a club, do a 0 hour, do something before school. A lot of the students will gravitate to this in time. And then lastly, if you're especially at the high school level, this is where it starts blending into entrepreneurship. At the elementary level, there's nothing wrong with having really creative exercises on solving huge, big problems without understanding how to really break it down and understand cost. At the middle school level is when innovation kicks in. These students are starting to come up with things with unique insights and unique ways to, you're like, wait a second, I think that you're onto something. So by the time they hit high school, it is by the time they validated and they're ready to launch. They have been working on something maybe for 2 or 3 years. And they'll understand how to take an innovative idea to break it down and say, what are the costs? Who are my audience? What is the product market fit? And all those fun things that entrepreneurs talk about. But if we allow that time for our students from kindergarten through senior year to just see problems as opportunities, you are going to transform towns. I promise you. The 2 examples I gave you, I was struggling with 30 others that I would like to give you as well. This is not a one-off. And also, if you're thinking, well, maybe you know where I'm from. I taught at a school that was very big. I'm so happy that just not too long ago, I just visited Union City, Indiana, with Randolph County Schools. Small town, big innovation. And their schools got to find and work with the city. They donated them a building where there's makerspace there. There's a television studio there. There's a podcast studio there. So I'm not going to listen to people go, well, we can't start that from where we're from. We're a small town. Yes, you can. And it starts with the teacher, or it starts with the student saying, can I have some of this time to accomplish the things that I'm passionate about, to acquire skills that may not be in school right now, but are on the horizon. And I want to lead that. That's all it really boils down to. And lastly, if you start building that, hey man, start local pitch competitions. I'm lucky enough and blessed enough that we run Innovate Within, which is crazily enough one of the biggest pitch competitions in the country now. And we work with teachers all over to get them to foster more of this. I'm begging any school leader, teacher, principal, superintendent to allow time for just this kind of thing. Final thoughts. Be the destination. Create a culture where students see problems as opportunities. Build that network so they'll have teachers that will be in the classroom or be able to work with you remotely. Leadership gets the job done. We need to provide more leadership opportunities for our students and start with creativity, grow with innovation, and finish with entrepreneurship. And lastly, and I mean this, the world is filled with so many problems that if we allow our students that kind of time, they'll shock you. So don't wait around. Don't wait around for perfect. Help your students make this kind of change tomorrow. Thank you.